If you saw Karen today, you'd see the radiant smile, but not the storms it survived. In this episode, I sit down with my friend Karen Joy, mystic farmer survivor, who walked through an abusive marriage, a federal sentence, and what she calls an ego death, and somehow came home to herself more whole than before. We talk about the moment she fled, the shock of intake, and how prison, yes, prison, became a strange kind of ashram where intention, books, and breath stitched her spirit back together. Karen shares the one belief that saved her and why some people leave confinement freer than they entered. If you or someone you love is facing a dark corridor, jail, grief, or just feeling lost, this conversation opens the door to presence, to choice, to the quiet courage of becoming. Stay with me till the end. I think the message that arrives will meet you exactly where you are. Karen Joy, thank you so much for joining me. We were just speaking before the camera went on, and we were reminiscing about the time we've actually known each other, which has been a while. I was just really reminded of how much I enjoyed our interaction. So thank you so much for coming. I'm really actually super excited to find out more about you and hear your story a bit more in depth.
Yeah, it's great to catch up, Huenu. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see the progress at Oracle and seeing all the wonderful practitioners that are joining you on this journey, and it's going to be a really fabulous one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I enjoy sharing my story with you guys, because you followed my path as well for a while and the challenges, right? And we were saying that, like, that's one of the ways in which people connect with us is through our stories. And this is why we're doing this podcast today, is just, just talk a bit more about you and your story. And you have an amazing, amazing, amazing story. So I really want to tell it. I really want to hear it, actually, not tell it. Where do we start?
Where do we start? Today, I would say if you looked at me and most people who see me out in the world, I always have this like permanent grin on my face. And I think it's because of what I've gone through. And nobody sees that, right? So I appreciate you bringing that up. Like, it's really important for people to know the story because they might look at you and think, oh, that girl's got it all together. She's got everything. Like, maybe they have a pang of jealousy or something like that. But I don't think any of you would want to walk in my shoes after you hear what I've been through. We could start, where I am today, which is healthy and fabulous and fully employed and doing all kinds of my own things and very excited about it, but also very tuned in. I would call myself a mystic. I'm learning more and more about the mystics of the ages. And I'm just reading actually a book called, I think it's called The Ordinary Mystic. And or Ordinary Mysticism, sorry. It's by Mirabai Starr. And it talks about what mysticism is and how it's a direct connection to the divine without any intermediary. You don't need an intermediary to connect with the divine in your world. And that's one thing that I like to encourage everyone to strive
Yeah.
for. But let's rewind.
Let's rewind to the most important part of your bringing, which, starts off your story.
I am a child of the city. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and I had very hardworking parents who did the best they could, and I got a great education. I never quite fit, and I wasn't really great at school. I made it through, but school was not my thing. I was much more creative. I'm much more of a free spirit. And I went
Mhm.
to school away from home, traveled around a lot after that, just exploring. And what I like to think of my life as every one of us, in fact, start as this rough diamond. You're this beautiful spark, but you're rough. You're learning along the way. We're all learning. We're just incarnated and learning about being a human and how to be a human. And along the way, we get faceted. We get chips, come off. People teach us things and we either absorb it or we let it go. Most of us absorb it. I didn't
Mhm.
have any real issues when I was a child, except for not fitting in. It was, I was the odd one
Yeah.
out. I think there was some bullying going on there, but I eventually
Yeah.
blossomed, went to college, got a degree in fashion design of all things. I don't know. I don't
Oh,
know
really?
why.
Wouldn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of that's my bachelor's degree. I was always a seeker, and I will say that I'm always seeking what I would call source. I like to do things the hard way first to see how hard it
Mm,
is to do it. And for a while, I went into farming. I was an organic farmer for about 10 years, and that's where the real story kicks in. That's the real story. Yeah, I got married. I'm not very good at being alone. I'm actually terrible at being alone. I go into this like self-destruct spiral where I sit at bars and drink. Don't do that anymore because I'm healthy, but I used to do it because I really was feeling very lonely. And I met a person online, thought, this guy is cool. He's got his act together. He's great. And he had this really super cute dog. Dogs, they're so cute. So I wound up marrying him, and it was a really bad
yeah.
idea. He was not a good person. And he even admitted it, so here's one tip. If somebody flat out tells you that they're an asshole or a jerk, I don't know if you can have swear words in this, but if they flat out tell you that they're not a good person, believe them.
And leave them.
Don't don't dismiss it because they know themselves better than you ever will.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good tip, if you think about it. Okay, great. You obviously didn't believe him and went along and stayed in the relationship.
Yeah. And then we wound up I think it was 2008 when the whole bubble crashed and there was an economic downfall in the United States. We went underwater on our place of where we were residing, and we were trying to sell it and get out from under it. And at the same time, I had this interest in becoming a farmer because as a city kid, I didn't know you could be a farmer. I didn't like I there was this complete disconnect. So I went
Mm,
out and I started learning about it. I took classes at there was a place I could take courses at in Illinois. I was living in Illinois at the time. Learned all about it, and the one good thing about my ex was that he was really like a type A, let's go do it. So he pushed me beyond what I'm a planner. I
mm,
like to have everything perfect before I go do something. He taught
mm.
me just go do the thing. And we had great success. We had great success for the first like 6, 7 years. We were doing bang up business with our community supported agriculture shares. I was at markets nearly every day going to Chicago. The farm was in Michigan. But what happened during that economic downturn was we lost everything that we had. We actually went into bankruptcy, lost health insurance, and that resulted in him going off of his medication. And I did not know who he truly was until he went off those meds. And then I saw how broken he was. And he was very abusive. And then I started to see all of the ways that he was damaging my life. He was manipulating and controlling me. He had isolated me from my entire family, all of my friends. I remember sitting in the car one time. He had threatened my life. He told me he was going to take us both to see Jesus. And we were in the car and he was going about 100 miles an hour. And I got out of that situation, but I was overcome with fear. I was paralyzed with fear. I was in the car, he had left, and I just sat there, phone in hand, had my phone in my hand, could not physically call anyone, could not dial that phone. And so I was in that stuckness, just isolated and broken and lost for many years. Friends who knew me well and who knew me before I met him recognized the change, but they couldn't reach me. So it was I
Why?
can't
Why
even
not?
say it was I think it was my little sister. So one thing I learned was that he was blocking phone numbers on our account for our cellular phones. And I didn't know because he controlled everything. I didn't know he was doing that. So people could not even call me. People who wanted to call me couldn't call me because their numbers were blocked. And I didn't know that until after he was gone. And I think it was my little sister who finally got through and picked me up from the farm one Christmas. She flew from, I think she was in LA. She flew from LA to Chicago, drove from Chicago to the farm in Michigan, picked me up. I ran out of the house so fast. I left all of the gifts on that porch. And I had worked so hard on
Wow.
them. They were all homemade because we didn't have any money. So I was making all these things by hand and got in the car and took off because he was in the tractor out in the blueberry field.
Wow.
And it was that point where he realized he didn't have control over me anymore.
Yeah.
And then that
How
was what
many
allowed
years? How many years were you
that
together?
we were together 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a while.
It was a long
And
time.
then?
And then when I found out after he left on the farm, we had received several grants. I was really good at getting grants because we were one of the earlier certified organic fruit and vegetable farms in Michigan. And that, there were a lot of opportunities to get grants. And especially if you were feeding an urban area like Chicago, which has, I think, 6 or 7 million people in the Chicagoland area. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of money available for farmers to bring
Yeah.
food into those areas. And I was winning grants all the time, and we won this federal grant to help us with our certified organic blueberry operation. We had our landlord who joined in as the fiduciary, but he wasn't very good at it. And my ex, who was just like, do it, do it, do it. And he made me sign all the paper. He was one of these where he would just put the paper in front of me and I would sign it. And turns out he put everything in my name, and then we had all of these transactions that weren't supposed to be submitted to the grant because they were outside of the contract period. Dates were changed and things were submitted, so technically it was fraud, right? And then we had an angry employee who reported it to the USDA, and guess what? I went to jail. I went to prison. I went to prison for 7 months for that. And I think that was one of the only things that could have happened at that point to actually get me fully
Break. To
away
break
from
free.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah, and it actually kept me very safe. I was safer in
Wow.
prison than I was out. Yeah,
Wow.
I was definitely safe. And the other thing about it, I told my lawyer they assign you a lawyer, and this was at the federal level. So I went to a federal prison, same one that Martha Stewart did. And they assign you a lawyer. She's the one who figured out that I was in an abusive relationship. It took her 2 years of conversations with me. These things go on for a really long time, so this was a long process, and I told no one. No one knew that this was happening. No one knew that I was being investigated. Like, I was just running my life as per usual, and it came to a point where she said, "First of all, you need to go talk to a therapist because you've been in an abusive relationship. You've been manipulated and controlled, and you need help to heal from that. You have PTSD probably," which it turns out I did. I had no idea. I didn't ever hear the word gaslighting before. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what narcissism was. These aren't things that we teach in school. I wish we did. But I started to heal, and she helped me greatly. And she asked me to write letters to friends and family to make a statement about my character. And I had to reach out to people. And when that happened, the whole thing broke
Mm,
open and everybody found out what was going on and my family got involved. And actually, my
wow.
whole family, plus my new boyfriend and my current partner, he brought his whole family to it was a sentencing trial because I pled guilty from day one. I was like, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. That was my repeating statement. It's all my fault and I'm
Mm.
sorry.
Oh,
That's what
wow.
I learned
Yes.
with my ex-husband. It's all my fault and I'm sorry. And I kept saying that over and over. And I said, what do I need to do to make this right? And the judge said basically, well, you need to go to prison because I wouldn't let them go after my ex. I'm like, there's no way you're going to get him anyway. And if you do, I won't be here for you to send to prison or to get money out of later because that's what it's all
Yeah.
about, right? It's transactional.
Yeah. Mm.
So that I've never been in trouble in my life.
Jail. I mean, jail. Just the word. I think of jail, and I would love to ask you about it because I think I must have been in jail in my previous lives. I am so claustrophobic. The thought, it's actually the claustrophobia that you can't actually get out of there. I mean, it's not just, it's like the things like if you really, really, really want to, you can't. And I just think of, I don't know. I mean, even just thinking about it, like if I think of wanting to get out of any place, right, and not being able to, that's hectic for me. That's a terrible feeling. I can't, it's one of the worst things I can think of. And I don't know what that does to you psychologically, how you get over that. Well, you have to, even, I mean, you have to surrender. Like you're going to have to give up at some point and go, eh, eh. So, I mean, so it must be, I don't know. Let's hear your story because it just seems like one of the worst things that can happen to anyone.
Well, I have been inspired. I've been writing the book lately. I've been healed enough from that moment in time. And if, people talk about dark nights of the soul and all of these things. And I think if I had to qualify my dark night of the soul, it was the day I checked in to federal prison. I self-reported, like my dad and my boyfriend at the time drove me down to West Virginia. The prison I was staying at was in West Virginia. It's called a camp. It's really a low minimum security, white collar crimes, a lot of drug crimes in there, but mostly it was people who have done tax evasion. I think the executive assistant for Bernie Madoff was in there with me. There were some mafia wives. It was just this sort of laid back, and it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's beautiful. It's in this river valley in West Virginia. And when I got in there, something happened because you don't know what to expect. Nobody tells you what this is like. And I got in and just was waiting for some instruction, but they don't really, there's no hand holding. There's nobody telling you what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. There's no gentleness about it at all. You are guilty. You go and you experience what I would call, and I'm no expert in this, but I would call it ego death. Complete and utter ego death, because everything that you know is taken away from you. You go in naked, just like a baby. You go in, they strip you of all your clothes, they do like a whole full body cavity check and everything. And at
What?
that moment was when I just checked out. Like I was out. I was like, okay, you go ahead and handle this. I'm putting you on autopilot. Um, it was hard.
Wow.
Because I've never been in trouble before. I had no idea. And I thought maybe somebody would tell me what was going to happen, or maybe somebody would explain
Did they
things.
treat you badly? Did they treat you
They
badly?
don't
Did they
treat you
like,
badly.
no?
They don't treat you like a person. And I do think that's sort of bad. Um,
That's
I
very bad.
did I did meet some, I think, the intake people and some of the their correctional officers or COs. I learned a lot of lingo, which is really fun. So the whole campus is run by a handful of COs, and then all of the inmates do all of the work. So from
Yeah.
landscaping to snow removal to cooking the food to taking care of the automobiles, cleaning everything. Carpentry was one division. There's also an education building, but
Wow.
inmates do all the work. They even build the buildings. So I got in, and you have to work in the kitchen to start, because the kitchen always needs people and it's always up. You have to be up and be down there at 5 a.m. And that's sort of a requirement when you're new. You have to put in your time. So I did that, and it was really, really hard because it's hard to sleep. It's so noisy in these places. You're in a giant cinder block room with 170 women.
This
It's
I just
crazy.
can't believe I can't believe this is actual real life, you know? I think of a movie and I'm like, it's not a movie, it's real life. It's real
It's
life,
real
it's happening
life.
right now. There's people in there right now.
There are. And I will tell you, the saddest thing that I saw was that there are people who intentionally commit crimes in the world to get back into prison because their world outside of prison is less safe and less secure. It's really sad.
Wow.
Because in
Wow.
prison, you're fed, you're sheltered, they have to take care of you. You're a
Wow.
ward of the system. They have to make sure you're healthy. You get health care, you get
Oh.
meds, you get education, you get recreation, you have programming, you learn trades. There was a girl in there who she's a master electrician. She did that during her time in prison. They even drove her out to do the master electrician exam. So
Great.
fascinating
I mean, I
system.
think
It's a good,
well, I mean,
they do.
not great that people wanna go there, but it's great that they offer that, right? I mean, it is trying to build a human as well, and of course, it serves them because the jobs need to be done anyway, the buildings need to be built. But, I mean, you might as well go out and do something than stay and learn and, it's still flippin' hard, you know what I mean? It's still crazy. You're definitely learning the lesson, I'm sure, right? You might as well. Okay.
Might as well learn
Yes.
along the way.
And we might as well learn along the way. Yeah, exactly. So I suppose it's not a
Mhm.
bad thing because if you, I just, the thought of it again is terrible for me. But I mean, I suppose that are jails doing what they're meant to be doing? And maybe they are, because if you're having a spiritual awakening on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're actually learning skills and you're staying safe and I'm sure you're learning a lot. Do we come out better when we leave prison? And if the answer is yes, it's then at least doing its job. I wish we didn't need them, of course. And I think that's the problem we need to fix. I mean, we shouldn't have to have a society in which we need prisons. This is what we're striving towards. But while we're getting there, is it a good thing to have or not? What
Right.
do you think?
And so my take on it is that if an inmate comes in and knows that they can better themselves and wants to better themselves, it's all about intention first. Most of them didn't have that intention. They were just surviving. So the few examples that I gave about, becoming a master electrician and all of these things, those were the people who set their intention and said, "You know what? I'm going to do something with this time. I'm going to make something of this time." People pay a lot of money to go to an ashram to give up their ego and give up all their stuff. That's essentially what prison does. If you set the intention and can change your perspective to view it that way, you can become free while you're still confined. And that's all about your the way you think. It's all about how you approach it. And so when I approached it, at first I was very sad and very lost. And then I realized I have all this time and I get to just read books. I get to just teach myself meditation, or I can take a yoga class. They had yoga. It was hilarious. Prison yoga is probably the funniest thing I've ever done in my life. If you're going to prison, what I will
Yeah.
say is set your intention to improve yourself some way, somehow. Pick something that you want to learn and then get the books. They have libraries, people can send you books. And then take that time to turn inward and really work on yourself. I think I came out much more whole than I was going in, but it
Oh,
was a process. It was a crucible. It was not easy. It was not fun. There were a lot of tears. There was a lot of struggle, but now
mm,
I'm whole. I don't
mm,
feel faceted. I don't feel like my ego is over here and I'm just transactional anymore. I'm actually very intentional all the time now. I'm very present all the time now because I know how precious time is and what we can do with it when we really focus.
And tell
Yeah.
me, what is the thing that you learned the most in those 7 months? And the most fundamental change in your spirit, I suppose, or in you as a whole, what was it?
Number one was really finding myself. I really came to know who I was without all of the trappings and all of the things that we collect in life. If you've ever
Mm,
seen, there's a Japanese game, it's kind of an older one, it's called Katamari Damacy, and it's where you have this little ball and you go around and you roll things up in the world, like you're picking up junk, you're picking up money and toys and papers, and that becomes this sort of shell around us, right? When you go to prison or an ashram even, or a monk goes to a monastery or a nun goes to, I don't know what they go to, nunnery. um, you're breaking that shell off of you. And you can do that in your own life. You don't have to let go of all your stuff. But if you can figure out who you really are at the core of you, what are you? Who are you? You're
mm,
not your stuff. You're not the things you've collected. You're not the people you know. You're a beautiful and divine spark. You're a beautiful, unconditional love that's come here to have a human experience. And human experiences
yeah.
are hard and messy and they suck sometimes. But if you can figure out who you really are, you'll know how strong you are too.
That is so beautiful. And it's so powerful. Part of the reason we do these podcasts is to share our real stories so that somebody who's in a similar situation can also find a home and some help. Because, I've spoken to drug addicts and they tell me you don't know what it's like. And I don't know what it's like. You know what I mean? To be honest, I can't say, oh yeah, I know what it's like. And I don't. And I can give you some advice of what I think you should do, but they're not really going to listen to me and my perfect life compared to theirs. or my different struggles. I just don't know what they've been through, you know. So I'm not a good teacher of somebody who's a drug addict. But that's
Yeah.
why I think somebody who's been or is going through a similar situation as what you've gone through, I can't even imagine. I'm not a good teacher, but like you are. And we all have our best teachers. And it's based on what they went through, right? And what we're going through, and that identification. And there is an empathy there that you'll be able to feel that I won't. Because as much as I try, I can feel like empathy, but I won't. And you will. And so I think it's so important to share our stories, like all of our stories, so that we can better help the next person. How was it coming out that first day? What was that like? What did you do? Because I've gone 25 days in a deserted island with no food. Okay. And I can tell you what I ate when I came out because I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to eat. And I thought about that for 25 days. So for
Yeah.
7 months, what did you think about what, I bet it's like a coffee and a muffin at a coffee
I
shop,
wanted real
something like that.
coffee.
Something like that. Or watching or something, or driving. What was it? What do
I
you think?
wanted to, so my partner picked me up and I really wanted a good breakfast with coffee. But the first thing we did was go to the motel in town and have sex.
Yay!
I was like, I want to
That's
have sex and I want a
great.
really
Of
long
course,
shower.
that would be the first thing.
Then we went and had this really lovely breakfast because it was a long drive home from West Virginia to Michigan. I think it's about oh gosh, I think it was 12 or 13 hours. And so we stopped and got a breakfast and we managed to get our favorite pizza right at the border of Indiana before we got into Michigan. They were about to close and I was just so excited. Like, I don't know, I was like beaming at this guy. I'm like, I really want pizza. And we called ahead, because I knew they closed and I knew they did limited batches of dough, right? So they might be sold out. So I called and I'm like, really want a pizza. And we might get there. We're driving. And the guy he was super cool. He's like, yeah, just come on in when you get here. And he actually gave us like a second pizza for free or something. It was just like this really beautiful I'm like, you have no idea. I just drove from West Virginia. I didn't say I got out of prison, but I was like, we just drove from West Virginia and all I wanted was this pizza. And he was like, it was so great. It was so great. And then my family was all at home. They were waiting for me because this was right between Christmas and New Year's. And so our entire extended family had come and they were all waiting and they just could not handle me because I was like bouncing off the wall. I was so excited about everything and everyone. And
Yeah. Oh my God.
it was crazy.
What a
They were like, you need to
moment.
calm down.
What a moment. From there till now, you've evolved. Now you are a channeler. How did you get to channeling? Did that happen in prison at first, or was it after?
It was steps. It was a progression because in prison, I started really reading and learning a lot about the basics, a lot about just meditation, how to still your mind, how to still your body, how to be meditative in every moment. So, whether you're preparing for bed or getting up and going to work, being able to be present. And so, that was a good foundation for me to begin continuing my seeker's journey when I got out. I didn't know what was going to happen, and life is very different when you have a criminal record. So, luckily, I had a job that was waiting for me when I got out because they knew me. They knew I was trustworthy and that was just a thing. It was just a thing.
Mm.
And I started to explore more of the metaphysical, more of the mystical, and I discovered channelers and I started listening to some channelers. Channeling's been around for a really long time. I think it's always been around, to be honest. We are all channelers to different degrees. And I met Peter Dennis, which I know you talked to Peter, and he taught me how to channel. He's a hypnotherapist. He's sort of a channeling facilitator. He's really good at it if you want to become a channeler. And he's
Absolutely.
able to identify and let you drop in to a place where you can connect. And I did that. And at first, it was this funny little moment where there was this childhood me hiding in there, and they were like, "My name is Peanut," and I'm like, "What's this all about?" And then what came through, he said, don't hold expectations. It's all about intention. Don't hold an expectation. What comes will come. He said, well, what thoughts do you have about channeling? And I explained to him, I'm a seeker of source. I've always gone to the source. I like to, if I see something that's made out of cotton, I want to know how did that get there? in that state. So I'll go all the way back to growing cotton if I have to. So I told him that, and then source came through. And so what I channel is, I would call it divine unconditional loving energy when it comes through. It's a very, just very pure, loving and intentionally loving energy. And it meets you where you are. That's the
Mm,
really interesting thing about it, because when you're up here vibrationally, so it's all about energetic alignment. And when you're up here vibrationally, that frequency coming through the body can then adjust and meet the person that you're speaking with in their
mm,
present moment with the tools and the messages that they need to hear that are ready to land. Because each and every one of us is cultivating the soil for spirit. Right? So we are working on ourselves constantly. And if you're coming to Oracle or you're listening to this message, you know you're seeking something. There's something that you haven't found yet, or there's something that you're working on, or you're curious about, or you just want to know more. And that's why you're listening to this. And that's why you're out there in the world looking for these things. And the messages come in from different places. They might come in from a person, they might come in from a book, they might come from a podcast, it could be a TV show. That's all the way, the spirit has all the ways. All the ways
mm.
are available. You just tune to different ones. So that's kind of what channeling is for me and how I came to do it, and I'm very honored to be able to do it.
That is just a really great explanation of channeling and meeting people where they're at. Because I think sometimes people do find that concept challenging, as in, like, you're going to get what you need. Am I? And you do get what you need. And it's understanding that we are getting what we're needing actually at every point in time. And it is about resonating also with the practitioner, because it's how does that practitioner put it to you, whether it's through their energy or their words, that you can click. Because at the end of the day, every client is clicking themselves. You are not doing the job. They're fixing themselves. They're aligning
Yeah,
themselves. It's just helping them. And so the words we say and the energy we give either help this person or not. Some people go, well, that is absolute BS and that's never going to work for me. Well, then it isn't a great match, right? But there might be another match for that person where it will click for them. And so I love the way you explained that. So thank you so much. And I love you and your energy. And yeah, thank you for being on Oracle. I hope you get to do lots more of this work because I know it is so helpful. Thank you for sharing your
yeah,
story as well, which is like unbelievable. And for getting through that so amazingly well. And I was going to say earlier on that you have all of these options to you available to you when you're in jail, but not everybody takes that opportunity to evolve, in education and spiritually. But what a great opportunity. And I feel like the work of spiritual practitioners is so important in a place like a jail, because that is your opportunity to grow spiritually, to really live life from a completely different perspective. And so having a spiritual practitioner, and I don't just say this to promote Oracle, I say it to actually help people. It's like, no, really, I mean, if you can come out the other side of jail saying that's the best thing that ever happened to me, that is pretty powerful. And there's a lot of people, I'm assuming, I don't know what percentage, a big percentage, but that don't come out that way. That was the
yeah,
worst thing that ever happened to me. And my life sucks. And just, it's bad. Everything's bad. I feel like the spiritual work in a place like that is so, so valuable. That's why I run this platform. I think it's so valuable.
yeah,
So yeah, thank you for doing what you do once again. And I hope if anybody resonates, they do like call you up because I know you can help.
yeah.
So
Yep. I would love to help anybody. And I know a lot of people have questions. I've had people come to me who say, "Oh, I just found out so and so who I know, or I have a friend who I know someone who's just gotten a prison sentence and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to expect." And I've helped them with information. I have limited information because I only went to one facility, but at least I can help them understand a little bit of what it's like. You don't really know until you get there. And trust me, you don't wanna do it if you don't have to.
no, 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 absolutely. But I think it's also valuable where you come in from the spiritual perspective, helping them to see it as an opportunity and to be able to come out stronger the other side. And it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
jail, it has to, it's just any sort of hardship that we're really dealing through. There's a reason for it. And I think you can help people see the value in that. Thank you so much, Karen. And I really do hope to chat with you soon another time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Huenu.